Halloween is behind us. Was my favorite holiday of the year as a kid, so I'm a little sad about that. We're closing in on Thanksgiving. It's getting really cold out, and that means it's time for the MIAA state playoffs. We're excited at WCTV. We really go all out in covering football. Wilmington High, as always, and this year we expanded to Shawsheen Tech. And we wanted to do something for the playoffs, and I needed to bring in guys that know more about the high school football scene than me. So that's why I'm being joined today by Anthony Petrelis, who does the Beyond podcast, and Mukala Kabongo, who does LCTV After the Whistle. If you guys need to know anything about sports, high school sports in Massachusetts, especially football, these are the guys to talk to. So we are going to have sort of a crossover episode between the three of our respective publications to talk about the playoffs coming up. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, man, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
I like this here.
This is a great setup. I mean,
Seriously.
I've seen this so many times watching different episodes. Now to kind of be in the room and see this is what it really looks like. It's incredible. It's a great setup here.
I'm really excited. I pay attention to like both of your guys' stuff all the time. It kind of, I think, pushes us to be better with our high school stuff. So I'm really excited to have everybody in here. Because I see both you guys all the time when I'm out shooting stuff, and I respect the hustle like crazy from both of you. So.
Thank you. Same.
So I guess first and foremost, to me, there's 8 divisions in Mass, which is wild. It's changed so much. I'm 41. When I was in high school, I grew up in Cambridge. Like, Ringe was Division I. I can't say that we were ever exactly a football power. We had to play Everett every year. They were the football power.
Right.
But I look at, like, the GBL was, like, a legit league. It's not really a legit league anymore.
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
And it's, like, almost none of those schools are even Division I anymore. And Division 1, 2, 3 doesn't necessarily means the higher divisions are the better football teams anymore. It used to be. But just like, what are you guys feeling about this year? What are your opening feelings just on the playoffs this year?
Want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. It's interesting. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's so many teams that are in like Division 3, Division 4, Division 5, or even Division 8 for that matter, that can beat a lot of these other teams that are Division 1, Division 2, 3. So, as we look at the playoff seedings a little bit, I'm just I always big into like going and looking at box scores and who played who and kind of get a comparable matchup, who plays in what non-league and so on. I think it's really open this year. I feel like a lot of divisions you're seeing some new teams in there. Some you're seeing some familiar faces as your top 4, top 5 ratings in those divisions. But I think there's a lot of newer teams in here this year, or at least teams that, they might have been there before, but their seedings are a little different.
Yeah, I think, we might as well scratch out Division 2, because if Catholic Memorial don't win it, it'll be a shocker to everybody. And that's one of the other problems that we're having here is a lot of the Division 2 teams are dropping down to Division 3 because they don't want to play Catholic Memorial and, have a great season just to play them in the state title game and lose. So we got that issue going on. And then Division 1 is kind of top-heavy. It's probably going to be the same teams year in, year out: St. John's Prep, Springfield Central, Xaverian, Central Catholic, those teams. But then you'll have those outlier teams like, Leominster. They've had a good season. Wachusett, they have had a good season as well. Methuen, they've had a really good season. They'll be competitive, but in the long run, they'll probably be the top-heavy teams in Division 1. Your St. John's Prep or your Xaverian or Springfield Central that are probably going to be in the semifinals in the state championship game. But Division 3 on down, those are very competitive. 3, 4, 5, 6 this season, I think we're probably going to have the most interesting playoffs is 3, 4, 5, and 6. And even 7 and 8, they got some really good teams in there, but 3, 4, 5, and 6, those are the divisions that are really going to be competitive this postseason.
And I guess I'll start with Division 5 because I think that's kind of, if you look at the Venn diagram between the three of us, we're all spend time in that because of Shawsheen Tech. Anthony, tip my cap to you. I've done it on our podcast here. You've been rocking with the Tech since the beginning. We cannot say that at all. We are late to the game with Shawsheen Tech. We got in this year with the Wilmington connection and then covering it, but like you've been with them from the beginning, so you know them. You're the Tech guy, but we love covering the Tech. I've shot them all year. Mukala has seen them on the road, but you do St. Mary's, you do Greater Lawrence, you do a bunch of the teams from up in that area being based out of Lynn.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting place for us to start because we all spend time in that division. I will say you kind of hit on it with Central Catholic, and like I just have to say, and I know it's different school to school, but some of the private schools, Catholic schools and otherwise, I just don't think it's fair that they're competing in the MIAA. It's such a different animal. They don't all recruit, but let's be real, some of them do. And those teams that recruit, now that a certain coach isn't coaching at a certain gold and red public school anymore, there's no public school that, let's be honest, recruits like the certain school that I had to play on Thanksgiving every year did. And it's just not the same. You know, it's not fair. You have these schools that it's literally just luck of the draw of who's born in your town and decides to stay with the public school and play for the public school versus schools that can bring in people from all over the place. So I did just want to do that disclaimer that I feel like...
You're not the only person. You're not the only person that said that. We talked to Coach Dugan from Methuen, and, you know, he shared the same sentiment. If you talk to some folks that visit Massachusetts from out of state, the idea that a public schools and private schools actually play in the same postseason, it's mind-boggling to them because they're coming from states where the private school has their own postseason, the public school has their own postseason. In some states, they have the winners of the public and private. They play each other. It's like some big thing at the end. But through the most part, a lot of states, it's public schools have their own and private schools have their own.
I mean, the fact that like Bishop Fenwick is their Division 6. Division 6. You see that squad, and it's like they got kids from all over.
Yeah.
That does not look like like the size of those kids, everything. Getting out of football, like St. Mary's, who you covered, like their girls hoops team had like 4 Division I commits on their team a couple years. Like there's not you don't see that in public schools in Massachusetts anymore.
They have 4 Division I commits, and they had another one. Another high Division I recruit that was in middle school.
Yeah, I know she's
she's a junior now.
Like it's just, but anyways, I digress. Division 5 is the crossover, and the number 1 squad there that all 3 of us has seen. Anthony's the expert. I've gotten to know them pretty well this year. Mukala's seen them, especially from an opposing perspective, a decent amount. Shawsheen Tech, they have not lost a game since the Final Four in 2023. They went undefeated last year and won championship. They are undefeated to end the regular season at 8-0. They're the number 1 seed. I don't think they were ranked 1 in the MIAA standings, like in the power rankings, this whole time until the seeding came out, which is wild. But what do you guys think about Division 5? Is you know, I've seen the Tech, and what I've seen this year is they don't have any real big weaknesses. You know, you wondered how they were going to do with Sid Tildesley graduating, such a great player as a quarterback and everything that a quarterback brings. You know, Adam Caruso is not Sid Tildesley, but a kid playing his first varsity minutes as a quarterback's been great. The team that they could play in the second round, if they, you know, do what everyone expects them to do Friday, they've played both of their potential second-round matchups in St. Mary's and Greater Lawrence, who are going to be playing each other in the 8-9 game. St. Mary's gave them the biggest game out of anyone this year. They were losing with like a minute 40 left in that game. It's the only game that really they had a chance to lose it in the final minutes. Yeah. What do you guys think about Division 5? Is there... Do you guys think that the Tech's the favorite? Do you think... I mean, it's real hard when you've been riding a winning streak to be like... We can't have one at this point. You know, a lot of teams, sometimes it can help to just get that one sort of bad game out of the way. What do you guys think about Division 5?
I mean, I think Division 5 is pretty loaded. I mean, to put this into perspective, last year, Shawsheen won the Super Bowl last year. They beat Foxborough, who a few weeks before that had beat North Attleboro. And North Attleboro then walked on the field after that game in the Super Bowl and played, I think, Mansfield and creamed them. Yeah. Right? So that's a Division 3 Super Bowl champion who lost to Foxborough, who's Division 5. And then Shawsheen went out and shut them out. Yeah. So I think the quality of football in Division 5 is arguably... You know, as top heavy as Division 1 is, Division 5 is up there too. I mean, you got Foxborough, you have Medfield, you have Hanover, who's loaded this year. I know they're 5-3, but this is a team that can, you know, who almost beat Foxborough last year in the Final Four and was up, I think, 12-0 in the fourth quarter. So these are good football teams that are physical and tough. But as far as the Tech goes, I mean, I've been covering them for a while. You know, the biggest thing I think that in high school sports in general we underestimate a little bit, that is a championship mentality. I think when you win games and win big games, or in those situations for a long time and you win, your team's just having an advantage when it comes to the postseason in football. And, there's 16 teams that make it, and maybe the bottom teams aren't as strong. But as you get going, that experience of playing late in the season in the cold weather, maybe traveling to a neutral site, that stuff, experience does play into it. So I think a team like Shawsheen, maybe like a team like Foxborough has been there before too the last 3 years, they have that advantage over these other teams. But, I've seen the Tech, I think defensively, they're very strong. I think they're a team that they play man-to-man coverage, which as a defensive coordinator, I can tell you when you play man, you feel pretty good about yourself. But one mistake, one wrong gap, one anything, team's gone. So to play that consistently, to have as many shutouts as they've had, they're pretty impressive on that side of the ball. And offensively this year, like you mentioned, obviously life after Sid a little bit, but they got kids like Dylan Pratt, they got kids like Jake Banda, they got kids like Cam Banda, Carbone. I can keep going on and on. Nate Smith. They just have different guys who've been stepping up every week. So D5 is going to be interested, I think, especially round 2. You mentioned the St. Mary's matchup, but even getting down to that Final Four, I think you're going to have 4 very good football teams, no matter who they are, coming out of that division.
Yeah, with Shawsheen, they could play man-to-man the whole game because you got 2 good cover corners, you got safeties that could make up a lot of ground. So, and their front four can really get after it. So that brings a recipe for why they're so successful in the man-to-man. But in Division 6, I'm looking at this Archbishop Williams and Swampscott matchup. Swampscott, they got all the way to the Final Four last year. They lost to Fairhaven. This team got a lot of experience. The quarterback's back. They got some skill guys that are back. So there's a lot of experience. Archbishop Williams, fairly new to this. Hudson Garrity, the freshman quarterback. They got some key pieces. I saw them against Bishop Fenwick. They looked really good. But this is gonna be. I wouldn't be surprised if Swampscott won that game just because of the way they ended their regular season. I think they won like three or 4 in a row after a little rough patch early on in the season. Their running back Will Bush, 3 straight 100-yard games. He's been playing really well, and they got some speed too on the outside. So this Archbishop Williams and Swampscott matchup is what I'm looking for. And then McCormack with Medfield. Sometimes you could ride a player into all the way to Gillette Stadium, and I think Medfield has the guy that could carry them all the way to Foxborough. He's been having one heck of a season at the running back position this year for Medfield. They've been playing really well. Undefeated. They've won close games. They've won big games. But I think, and they've kind of a team we've never seen at this position before. So I would. That's the one guy I would think that could put the team on his back. And then Gloucester too. Gloucester. They've kind of going back to what they used to be. They were that running game of theirs. They got 3 good running backs, but it's a tough job with them with Auburn. But I think the potential Foxborough Gloucester matchup, I think that should be a good one for the second round.
To me, it's interesting because I come from the Tech perspective, but I don't feel bad about it because they're the number 1. Them and Archbishop Williams are the 2 undefeateds that are in Division 5. The Tech,
Medfield too.
Oh, okay. So I overlooked Medfield. Yep, you're right. Medfield. There's 3. My bad, Medfield. With the Tech, they start with their defense. Their defense is as good a defense as I've seen, and that starts with, I think, their linebacking core is the best. Like Jake Band is an amazing running back.
Yeah.
When they had their showdown with Greater Lawrence and Greater Lawrence's running back Gustavo is it Varela? Is that
yeah.
20-something touchdowns this year and came in with insane stats, but it was Jake Bannon was the one who was the best running back on the field that day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But and Bannon is an incredible running back, and he doesn't get a lot of publicity despite like gaudy numbers, and I think it's like he's not the fastest, he's not the biggest, but he just runs hard. He doesn't waste any energy. He makes his cut, he gets off the field, and he'll run someone over. But he's a great linebacker, and James Tildesley is just a beast. Mm-hmm. And then you have Benoit, who's playing next to them as a sophomore, who's a beast. And you just got a great defense there, and the potential of a great defense versus some great running backs. If they were to face off against Medfield in the Final Four, they could match up, or in the second round even against if they were to get Greater Lawrence again. With you could have that great defense versus that great running back. Could be an awesome matchup. I think the Tech also, what's really underrated for them is how good their special teams are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not just their return game, which is terrific. Cam Banda's had 2 kick return touchdowns as a sophomore, and I still don't think he's the best returner on that team. People just won't kick to Hattie Sabay, who's the fastest guy back there.
Their special team sealed the game against St. Mary's.
Exactly, and that's the thing but as good as their return game is, I think their cover game's even better. And usually at the high school level, teams, they're either running their starters out there on special teams because they don't want to give up a big play, and their starters are more gassed because of it, or they have their special teams, but it's kind of a like, the other team could break one at any time because you've got sophomores and JV guys out there. And the Tech, like, their special teams, cover teams are outstanding. I haven't seen a big return against them all year, and they've had some huge plays. The St. Mary's win, they scored an incredible touchdown with Nate Smith, but I think people kind of forget that there was still a minute 30 left, and on the ensuing kickoff, they stripped the kid and recover it, and that seals the game. That, like, special teams has been really fantastic for them. I think they have great cover, and they go man-to-man. The Greater Lawrence game, they got beat a couple. I think all 3 of Greater Lawrence's touchdowns were on passes down the field.
Deep balls, yeah.
Deep balls. Greater Lawrence, it would have been interesting if, instead of playing to what's been their strength all year, if they just went, we're going to pass the whole game instead of trying to run the ball, 40 times. Yeah. I think Shawsheen would have adjusted because their DBs are really good. They probably would have not. I think they were really packing the box to shut that down. It's hard to be number 1, but they've been there and done it. They won it last year. The last team to beat them was Foxborough in the Final Four. So Foxborough was the champion 2 years ago. Shawsheen was champion last year, and that's your potential 1 versus 2, which could be an incredible game.
Yeah.
And I think with D5 as well is, like, when you look at the other, like, 1 through 16s, I mean, we're looking here. I mean, you got 8-0 teams, 6-2 teams, 7-1 teams, 5. Like, there's not many as you get to the bottom of like a 3-5 team or like a 4-4. Like, these are teams that have winning records across the board. And when you look at some of these teams, like we talked to, Mook talked about Swampscott, and I saw Northeast play, who's not a bad team, not a bad team at all that played Shawsheen. And then obviously St. Mary's, Archbishop Williams. I mean, I used to coach in the CCL, so I know a lot about those teams. This is a pretty loaded North Reading. We haven't even mentioned North Reading, but a team locally too that's been doing well. So Division 5's loaded.
Last year, and they were North Reading was very impressive. I know there a couple years ago they won a Super Bowl. So I mean, I'm really excited about Division 5. You hit it. There's only 2 teams with a 500 or worse record. It's the 15 and 16 seed.
Right.
And Salem, even as the 16, I think is a pretty strong 16. I think they've played some pretty good teams that they have a 3-5 record. So I'm excited. What division you guys want to talk about next?
3.
All right, let's do it.
Division 3. That's another division that got some heavy hitters in that division. When you talk about King Philip, Barnstable, Milton, Hingham, Marshfield. I mean, Masco's the team I'm really looking out for. Fabiano, the running back, he's been playing well. I think he had like a 30 or 40 carry game a couple of weeks ago, like 300 or 400 yards. And the comeback win over Marblehead said a lot about them this season. I think they were down 17 points, 5 minutes left in the game, and they end up winning the game by 3.
That's a wild stat right there. Down 3 scores with 5.5 minutes left.
Right.
Like,
I mean, that is.
And in the conference, the Northeastern Conference is a conference that actually should be talked about more. A very, very competitive conference this year. They have a lot of good teams in there. I think Danvers made it. Beverly made it. I was talking about Masco, Swampscott, Gloucester, Winthrop got in. Marblehead. At Marblehead, they've had a really good season. So I think like 7 teams or so, 7 or 8 teams from the Northeastern Conference got in. So, that they're better. They're very battle tested. But King Philip is, I think they're gonna make another run at Gillette. They're just too experienced. That running game is too much. They got 3 running backs that they use at their disposal. They play good defense. They got a big offensive line. That's gonna be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that. I mean, again, not to go back to Division 5, but King Philip, number 1 in Division 3, them and Foxborough had a Drago brawl type game that was, I think King Philip ended up winning, but they were down late in that game again. So, again, you're talking about, yeah. So you're talking about, like, again, Division three, it's loaded here. I mean, look at your top 4 teams. I mean, I've heard everything great about Barnstable this year. Obviously, King Philip being one. Milton, we know them. I mean, Coach Zambowski is.
I saw them on last Friday.
Yeah,
I saw them
he's
last
always
Friday.
the spread with that team and how they run it and how quick they are offensively. I mean, there's some good teams here for sure.
And we haven't even said nothing about Reading.
Right?
I know it's wild to me that Reading is 14th, as good as that team is. That they're the 14 seed. That's it's too bad they won't get a home game because the crowds there are really fantastic from what I've seen.
Yeah, but my biggest issue with Division 3 is Malden Catholic being in it. I just don't think, my biggest issue with this whole ranking system is the rewarding of teams for losing and giving teams the benefit of the doubt because they play in a good conference. The Malden Catholic is basically in because they play in the Catholic Conference. They lost every game in the Catholic Conference. Only one of the games was close, and that was against BC High. They lost that one. BC High, they're having a down year because they graduated so many guys from last year, but it wasn't competitive against Zavarian. It wasn't competitive against St. John's Prep. It wasn't competitive against Catholic Memorial. But yeah, they're the 12. They get the number 12 seed. How, so it's kind of like, and then, this is a little biased, but you look at a team like Lynn English, they actually got punished they get punished for their conference, and then their non-conference games, they lose both of them, but both of them were close, but they don't get any type of points for that. You lose one by 2 points, and then you lose one by 14, but it was a one-score game throughout, and they left on the outside looking in, but then throughout the season they were in the 14, 15, 16 range. Yeah. Then the last 2 weeks they dropped to 18. So I want to know how all season long they were in it, and then the last 2 weeks they fell out the top 16, and but for Malden Catholic to be at 12, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I find it so interesting because I look here, like Melrose is an 11 seed, and then Stoneham's in D6, right? So we got D3, D6, Wilmington's in D6 as well. So it's like these teams all play each other, but they're all, when it comes to playoff, all in kind of different divisions.
That's wild to me. Like, from as best as I can remember, back, and this is obviously I'm now on the other side of 40, which is depressing, but when we were in the GBL, I think we were all Division 1. I don't like the fact that these conferences now, that's so many different.
Right.
The Middlesex, even the what is it? The sub conference that Wilmington's in, you have Division 3 through Division 6 in that one, which is that's crazy to me. Yeah. That and I get it because it has to do with school size and some other factors, and it's sort of, you're in a conference with schools typically that you're around, and the sizes of those schools can be a little different, but right. It is. I know there's no perfect system, but the power rankings I feel like really needs to be tweaked. I think that there's too much emphasis on strength of schedule, that there's something to be said for a team knowing how to win. Right. And I see it even more so in hockey, where you'll have teams that are 1-11 that are ranked pretty well in the conference tournament because they just played all these great schools, and it's but if you spend your whole season losing, even if you're losing to great schools, right, you don't know how to win in the crunch, which there's something to be said for that. And teams get kind of burnt out. The players start thinking about the next sport, the winter sport, the spring sport, whatever, because it's I'm tired of losing. And so, yeah, I think it is, if you've got a team that's kind of losing pretty big, to weigh it whoa, yeah, but they're playing great teams. I'd like to see a better system.
And that's how some teams have finessed this system. They know, okay, the litmus is we have to get 3 wins. So let's try to schedule these really good teams that we know we're not going to beat, and then in our non-conference league or whatever, let's get these games that we know we'll be able to win these ones. Let's get our 3 wins, and then that's it. Once we get our 3 wins, we just figure it out how to try to win or not win when we play the heavy hitters. So that's one way teams are finessing that system.
I'd be interested to see in football, anyways. Not maybe for other sports, it probably works differently, but will leagues eventually become null and void, right? If your league, we go back to Lynn English, they're always going to be penalized by the GBL. Right. No matter, they could be 7-0 and murdering teams, but they're not going to make that jump point-wise because of who they play. So it's, you wonder if that were to happen.
I think for some teams, going independent actually would be, it's a little, you have to do more schedule. It's harder on the AD. To have to fill out the schedule for every single team when you don't have a league, and find teams once you get into that conference play stretch that's every week we've got someone that we can line up to play. But if you're able to pull it off for Lynn English, I think it would be more advantageous to just be independent and
Right.
play the teams you can play and the best and not be penalized by the league. A team that's been talked about a lot. If you guys are good to jump, we could jump to Division 6 with the home team here where the studio is located in Wilmington. It's been talked about in the past about Wilmington, finding a new conference, or if not, even, I think people in the community have speculated, or we've talked internally here just at WCTV about if they were independent, because Wilmington in the Middlesex League, them and Stoneham have 600 and something kids, and then the next smallest school is like 800 and something kids, and then all the other schools are 1,000 or more, basically. Yeah. That's a huge disadvantage when you're a public school, because the bigger your student body, the more chance there is of having some great athletes here and there. And Wilmington's had a really amazing turnaround from last year. They started off the season, I think, you include the Chelmsford game, 0-8, 0-7.
Oh, wow.
And they won the 2 consolation games, and then so they wound up, I think, 2-9 on the season. Yeah. And they're 6-2. They're ranked 4th. They've got a home game, and it's just such a massive turnaround. And it's wild to me to see them 3 spots above Bishop Fenwick, who 2 years ago came in and really thumped them, and last year really thumped them. What do you guys think about Division 6? Are there any teams that you're familiar with that?
I'm familiar. I've got the chance to see Winthrop once this season. They have a good running back in Seth Sackle. He had about 150 yards in the game. I saw him. He had another big game against Swampscott. But I think my favorite coming out of this is Abington. I think Abington, the only game they lost was like a 5 overtime game or something at the season opener against Duxbury. But, they beat Norwell in the regular season. They won their conference, but I'm not sure how Norwell is the number 1 seed in that one, because the head-to-head matchup should matter.
Yeah, I think head-to-head should trump the rest of your
anything,
right.
Unless it's like one team's 3-5 and one team's 7-1. Okay, you had your one bad game. If the records are that close and you won the head-to-head, that should be a differentiator right there.
Right, exactly. So another confusion for me, but. I have Abington getting to Gillette in this one, but Hudson, they're the defending champs. They've also had a very interesting season. 7-1. They had they graduated some great players, but the ship's still rolling with them. I think this is a team, Hudson. They could make some noise and make some of these teams sweat, because I think they match up with everybody on their side pretty well. And
that would be a very interesting matchup, because if it's chalk in the first round, Wilmington would have Hudson at home in the 4-5 game.
Yeah, and those 4-5 matchups are usually evenly matched.
Exactly,
teams.
And Hudson's coming off of the defending champ. Wilmington, this is a team that these kids, they don't have that experience of winning. It's really pretty remarkable looking at when these kids were freshmen, the senior class at Wilmington. They had another season where they went winless until the consolation game. So 2 out of their previous 3 years, they had that like 0-7, 0-8 start to the season. And the fact that they stuck it out, and like the entire class basically came back and they picked up a couple of kids. It's really a testament to the head coach Joe Cavanaugh, who's in his first year, that just like the mentality, because the differentiator for them is their defense. Their last year, they struggled to tackle. Guys got into the secondary, and it could go for 80 yards on any play. And that's really where they've set the tone for them is defense. Unfortunately, their best defensive player, Timmy Watson, they lost him for the season in the win over Stoneham. He suffered a really bad arm injury. He was having an incredible year. If he was healthy, I'd say like Wilmington's a team to look to like be a sleeper to really maybe get to Gillette, because he was so good on defense. The game that he was lost to, he got knocked out to halfway through the third quarter. He had 11 solo tackles in two and a half quarters in that game, which is
that's a double wing offense. So you're reading guards and just making plays.
Right.
And the Stoneham win, I think, really set the tone for them, because
that was definitely that was a big win.
It's
for them.
had their number, and I feel like it also forced them to evolve. It forced the coaching staff, the offense to evolve, where they've been very run heavy in the games that kind of weren't blowouts up until that point. In the tight moments, it was like, let's run. And Stoneham they couldn't get the running game going, and they finally kind of started throwing. And Colin Allard had an 80-yard touchdown, and he had another touchdown before, so they had 2 throwing touchdowns. And they've really been airing the ball out. Like they're not like throw first. They're pretty balanced offense. But I think up until that game, they were a little over reliant on the run, and they've got some real weapons throwing the ball. They have a quarterback who's a genuine quarterback. It's not just like he's an athlete, we're going to put him at quarterback. That happens at like Mark Holleran, their junior quarterback. That's what he wants to do. Very tough kid. I know they've had to tell him, like, Mark, you can't play defense. I'm sorry. He's like,
Mark's a tight end, right? He was a D end.
So Mark Holleran is their quarterback, but the D end, Pat DeLucia, is also the tight end. And their defensive line is very interesting because their ends have been Pat DeLucia and Cam Pereira, who are like tall, athletic, maybe 200 pounds. Like they're real athletes, so they have a very fast line on the ends.
Yeah, they got those long arms that bat the ball down at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I was going to say Wakefield. I think a lot of the film you guys got, there was a lot of Watertown.
Yep,
a lot of batted balls, intercepted.
They get a lot of that at the line of scrimmage. They really are very active. And they're quick. They also, one of the guys they rotate in at nose is Colin Dwyer, who's like 185 pounds. He was a running back last year, and they rotate him in on the nose. They've got some bigger kids they play, but they're really like they're an athletic defense, especially like front line. Their linebacker core, even without Timmy Watson, like they play a kid, Jacob McCauley, who comes from a football family but was a cornerback safety last year. They moved him to linebacker. Theo Bryson they moved to linebacker, who's like an athlete. He's a wrestler, but he's like a fast, athletic, explosive kid. So their defense is really, it's not so much like brute strength. It's like they're very athletic. They read.
And probably coach really well.
Yeah, they're definitely, really well. You're definitely, leagues do like the most improved player like award, but like they're just, I think they might be the most improved team in at least one of the most in the state from looking where they've been like the last 3 years to having two of those past 3 years starting off the season 0-7, 0-8 each year, and then those kids who are now seniors, they're the number 4 team. So
that also might have to be a factor of them being together for so long.
I think so, and I think the fact they didn't quit.
Yeah, because sometimes you see that when you see a group. Like you can look at the kids of Somerville. Somerville, they had a really good season, but that senior class, those guys, they've been through it, and they've gone through the whole structure with the program. They've gone through all those bad times, but they stuck it out. I think they got a bunch of seniors on that team. Yeah, and, that led to I think a 6-2 season for them. So
what did they say? Adversity doesn't build character; it reveals it. It's like, can you stick it out? And like a Somerville, Wilmington, like these kids, you have a 20+ kid senior class in Wilmington. That none of those kids quit. They all like stuck it out through like some pretty tough years. Yeah, they got to be some tough kids to still be coming back and playing. Right.
So. I go back to the last year's group at Lynn English. Yeah. Those seniors, they had Ty was their third coach. That was Ty. Yeah, Ty was their third coach. So they had a lot of things going on their first couple of years, and they still were able to stick it out, and they had a great season last year. So sometimes, as you guys said, sometimes you just got to weather the storm. You got to stick it out, because it's kind of easy to just be like, all right, I'm getting out of here. Yeah. But it's when you come in with a group, especially with a large group, with a large class, I think that makes it more, the incentive is more for them to stick around and just ride out with their guys instead of transferring and starting over and trying to make new friends and figure out new teammates and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about Wilmington, and I obviously don't know as much about you do, but when I had Joe Kavanaugh, I had him on the podcast before the season started. That was a great one. His biggest thing was, we're going to run the football, we're going to play good defense, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I paid attention to that throughout the course of the season, and you'd see low-scoring games, or their opponent not scoring many points, and even if they weren't scoring many points, they were running the ball a ton, and they were really kind of, so you see they're running for like 150, 200 yards a game at that point, the first couple of games of the season, and they're shutting teams out or letting up like one score.
They get tough first downs on the ground, which they weren't doing in previous years, which is, I think is telling. And even though I'm saying, like, I think them opening it up and throwing the ball, because they've got some really athletic kids, Cam Pereira, Pat DeLucia, calling out, like, I'm not saying they shouldn't run. Like their bread and butter on offense is their running game,
Yeah.
and they
But you can
eat
do a
up the
lot off of
clock
it.
and they
Yeah.
get tough yards, and that's a big difference too. Is that if it's like a 3rd and 4 last year, you were kind of like, I don't think that's happening. This year, it's like, nah. Who are they going to give the ball to? Who's going to get them the first down?
Yeah,
Like,
and
someone's
good
gonna get them.
offenses,
Right.
a 3rd and 4 is like for a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
A team that can run the ball and then play action off of that, or just have a quick rollout type game. That's tough. Like, what do you, when you go against a team that can do it both ways, like you're not playing the pass in that situation, you're not just playing the run. So to have that balance, I think, is great. And when I had the kids on, they talked about, the defensive coordinator who's their O-line coach. And it's just interesting how that translates with that mentality,
Yeah.
because that's a similar mentality of physicality and being tough and owning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. And I think when your D coordinator is your O-line coach and you kind of see the success on both, he probably deserves a lot of credit. I forget his name, but he obviously you can see what they're doing on offense. It has a lot to do with the O-line, and defense, obviously more physical, like you mentioned, you can kind of just see that.
And you see, like that old school style of football is always going to be the key to success, especially with with programs that that's had troubles. It's like you just stick to that old school. We're gonna run the ball, and we'll pass when we feel like it.
Shawsheen, that's their bread. I mean,
Right.
that's Banda running the ball. Both Bandas running the ball now,
Right.
and then defense is just like they're gonna hit you every single play.
And that's a
Yeah.
playoff. I mean, that is a recipe for playoff success. Like
Yeah.
that is when you can play tough defense in the colder weather later in the season, and you can run the ball effectively. Yeah, you're a scary team to play.
Yeah. Even if you look at St. John's Prep and how they got the all-world quarterback, but he wants to run the ball. He wants to make you wear defense out, and then that opens things up for the quarterback. But he's heavy on the Coach St. Pierre. He's heavy on the run game and try to play physical.
I definitely think you pointed out like the change in that. Like I feel like this fall more than last fall, like it got real cold all of a sudden.
Oh,
like
yeah,
last
yeah.
Friday,
Yeah.
or no, 2 Fridays ago was the first like real cold game that I filmed. That it was like, and last year I don't feel like it felt like it got cold. I had a cold game really until maybe Thanksgiving, and it makes a big difference. Like some of these teams that have put up big points by airing the ball out. It's very different when it is cold and you can't grip the football, and then getting hit when you're cold. It's
a whole different game.
Yeah.
I had to be out in the rain last year for the semifinal game between Catholic Memorial and Wellesley. That one was brutal. It was cold and it was raining.
Rain makes for some great video.
It does.
Like our video from the Shawsheen Tech Greater Lowell game it looks amazing, but it is.
Yeah,
You got to go have somewhere warm to go and something warm to eat after that, because it is not. It's not.
And you're
fun
going
for
right to
everyone out there.
sleep after that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're like you're burning up energy.
Man.
But Anthony, I want to ask you, which division do you want to hop to?
Division 8. I want to talk about Division 8 because I think Division 8 this year has quietly had some great football and maybe a little top heavy. A little top heavy. But you look at the top 4 teams there. I mean, you get Neshoba Tech, who we've covered a lot. We covered Shawsheen as much as we have. We've covered Neshoba Tech equally. Their head coach, a former student of mine, so
that's
awesome connection there. But I've seen them play, and this year they amped up their schedule. They took on Catholic Memorial, and that's probably more for a points thing, than anything else. And we've talked about that. But they played Stoneham this year, and they lost by a point.
That's a good.
They had
Stoneham
5
team.
or 6 offensive possessions in the second half, and they scored on 2 of them. So, Stoneham ate the clock on them, but that was a DA team that played physical. I was so interested in that matchup because I thought Neshoba was pretty good, but that matchup I was interested in, and they could have won that game. You look back, I'm sure they have a bunch of plays they looked at that they could have won. But then you see Lee kind of came out of nowhere this year. They were 8-0. You have West Boylston, who's always up there at Division 8, is in the Super Bowl, if not in the Final Four.
Right, they're looking to go 4 in a row.
Yeah, so that's a team
That's
they're
wild.
the champs until they're not the champs. And, Randolph this year is knocking off, teams like Mashpee, and that's the conference they play in. They've knocked off all those teams. So talk about a Division 8 team that's knocked off some schools that are potentially beat some other schools that are in the playoffs that are division higher. I'm a big Neshoba fan. I kind of ride or die with those guys a little bit. And I think this year this is the best team I've seen them have in 4 years. I think their O-line is as good as it's been. Their running back, Zach DeChains, he's a sophomore. He's incredible. He's just broke 1,000 yards.
I've seen him through your videos, man.
Yeah.
He's like to go over 1,000 yards as a sophomore.
Zach DeChains.
DeChains,
He's 2 years in a row over 1,000 yards. They get 21 TDs this year
Wow.
overall. So he is a workhorse, but they can beat you other ways. They got other kids who can run the ball. They're not fancy throwing the football, but they know when to kind of mix it in there and catch teams sleeping. And Randolph, I've seen Randolph. I had their coach on the podcast as well. He's great, but that's a team that is beating some teams for the first time in school history in their league that they've never beat before. I mentioned Mashpee. That was the first time they've ever beat them. So he's got kind of a team this year that seems to be beating everybody. So Division 8, as it gets down to the Final Four, I think those 4 teams that you see up there are probably the 4 teams, to beat. But I'm going to roll with my guys in the show, but because they've ridden with Beyond, so we're going to ride with them.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I got a team to pull for in this. I got to tell you, I feel bad for Springfield Charter having to make how long a bus ride it is to go play the number 1 seed. That's brutal. It's like a 2-hour bus ride.
That's another thing with this statewide thing, man. Some of these bus rides and man, these travels is just absolutely brutal. I think Lynn Tech, they got to go to Bourne. That's a nice long,
from Lynn to Bourne on a Friday night.
Kip Academy got to go to Frontier. That's all the way in Western Mass. Springfield on a Friday too. That's the thing. The drive on a Friday, that is just
because everyone's trying to get out early, so the roads are.
You got to dismiss almost to get these kids out of school early.
I would suggest just take Friday off.
Yeah, just
stay there overnight or something. I really like Randolph in this division. Mekhi White, he might be the best player in this bracket. That young man, he's a tough back. He can do a lot. He's tough to bring down. And Randolph, if they get up on you, good luck, because they're gonna run that ball and eat up a lot of clock. So if you can't stop the run, you have no chance of beating Randolph. And if you can't score fast and they're up on you, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a tough outing. We could potentially have a rematch of last year's semifinals with Neshoba and Randolph. That one. I think Randolph won by a touchdown or so. I was at that game.
Yeah, it was very Randolph early looked like they were gonna kind of maybe run away, and then Neshoba kind of played tough, like the team I expected to see. But it's so interesting you say it because like Division 5, Division 8, if you looked at these seedings the week before, all those teams were in different spots. Neshoba was 3, I think Randolph was 2, West Boylston, Lee was 1. I forget what it was, but it wasn't this.
You also wonder with the formula they're using. I don't feel like. Now, I don't disagree with this seeding with Neshoba being 1. I don't disagree with the seeding. I think Shawshene Tech absolutely deserves to be number 1. Mm-hmm. But the fact that one game can make teams jump up that many spots, it makes you think I don't feel like the formula is great. That one game shouldn't be able to jump you 3 spots.
And sometimes teams will jump even if the team won, but they didn't win by this amount of points, so they kind of drop. So
that's what I heard. Is something about being over 14 versus being under 14 in a margin of victory, and I was like, wait, what?
And that's why you see a lot of these teams that the game's already in hand, they're still going out trying to score because of it. So it's kind of to fans and to fans and some coaches, it might make them look like jerks, but it's kind of no, this is due to the system. We have to try and score. Even
it's the NBA playing, right? I mean, the NBA the tournament they do, right?
The playing tournament,
It's all about points and everything else,
Cathedral's a team to watch out for, too. They're offensively, they got a really good receiver. He's probably a top 10, top 20 player in the state at the position. I'd be on the lookout for Cathedral. I think I haven't seen them play this season, but I missed their game against Lynn Classical. But they're a team that I think could make some noise this season.
So, what if we want to jump to one more bracket, or I guess we have 2 more left that we could maybe kind of fly through just time wise. What do you guys want to tackle next?
Division 2.
Yeah.
I mean, Division 2 is the top 2 seeds getting a bye because they don't have enough qualified teams to be in it. That's just another indictment on this playoff ranking system. But Yeah, it's Catholic Memorial and everybody else. That's literally all it's going to come down. It's Catholic Memorial and everybody else. I think Winchester is going to be the team that they see in the semifinals, just because of that offense of Winchester. I don't think anyone has been able to stop that offense yet this season. They put up a lot of points, explosive points too. They score in flurries. So that one, and then Bishop Feheen, that physical team. They got a big front. They play solid defense. I saw them against St. Mary's. St. Mary's couldn't move the ball that much against them. So that's that. But everybody else, it's kind of like, you're just playing for second.
I agree with you with Winchester. I think you hit the nail on the head with them. I saw them a couple years ago when they were younger and they played Arlington, and they looked good. And I think they made it to the second round of the playoffs that year. And I followed them last year. Same thing, tough team. But I agree everything I've heard about them scoring. Bishop Feenan's interested. Like I said, I agree. CM I think wins this. But Feenan is. That's a team I used to coach in the CCL, and they brought them into the CCL. And a couple of us coaches were not happy about it because we were just like, this team is deep and loaded and has a million kids, and they have no business playing in the CCL. But I'll give them a little love because you get Feenan, who's in the playoffs, Bishop Fenwick, who's in the playoffs out of there, St. Mary's, who's in the playoffs out of there, Archbishop Williams. So that's some good football being played in that conference here, and you kind of see it spread across Division II. But I agree with Mook. CM, I just don't see anyone really.
Yeah, from what I'm not. I watch more from afar in this division than you guys, but everything I've seen, I don't.
Yeah,
it would take someone's absolute best shot and something going pretty wrong for CM. I think. For them to,
2 years ago when Marshfield beat them, it would take something like that to beat them. But that was a fairly young CM team as opposed to because they had graduated so many guys. The talent was still there, but they were still fairly young because they graduated so many guys. So. Yeah, it's D2 that one.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
what do you guys think about Division 4? Tewksbury being, I saw Tewksbury last year. I've seen them a bit this year. They're number 2. They're very good.
They are good.
I can't believe
they are good.
They're not number 1 to me from everything I've seen. They are. Those kids are big.
They're big. They're physical. They're fast. They got guys that can break long runs.
And it's like their skill guys are big and fast. It's
and sophomore quarterback who's been getting better each season. We actually had two of the players on. I think Ethan and Cam on all in huddle on Sundays, and they were just talking about these guys and just the cohesiveness, them coming up together and. But playing since their youth football days, and how much they want to get to Gillette and bring one to bring a title to Tewksbury. And this year they have a really good chance. I think Scituate still is probably going to be the favorite to get back to Gillette and win it back to back. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy road though. It's not going to be an easy road after round 1 for Scituate because some of these teams. Bedford's
loaded.
They've closed.
Dude, I've seen.
They closed the season out really well.
So
they started off on
I'm
the patchy side.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm pulling for them. My dad was a Bedford High, was a 3-sport athlete, so I grew up going to their stuff. Even though I was in Cambridge, he passed away. He was a great athlete for them. He played. Division I basketball in college at UMass. So I always kind of from afar watch Bedford, and I saw them they have a Division I BCS commit on there. And when I saw that, I said, Bedford? That's something that used to happen 30 years ago, 40 years ago from small suburban publics, where a kid's going straight from them to a D1 BCS without a prep stop in between. And the kid, Mekhi Volsi, he's going to BC, I think, as a linebacker. But at the high school level, the MIAA level, he is, I think, much more of a problem as a wide receiver. He's 6'4",
he's athletic.
Runs a 4.5 40. He's big.
He can jump.
He is, to me, not to get sidetracked with Shawsheen, but when I saw that game, I said, I know Dylan Pratt's going to college to play baseball, but I think he could at least be a Division II football player because he did such an outstanding job covering Volsi. But that kid's a problem. And so if there was a lower team, I think could pull some upsets.
It'd be them.
It would be them. I know Scituate is really tough in the second round, but if anyone is going to knock off the number 1 before the Final Four in any of the divisions, I think maybe my bet would be Bedford in the second round if they get there, just because they've got that explosive factor. Their quarterback's very athletic. He can kind of run and make some scramble stuff happen.
Right.
And, like, they have some of the athletes that you can do it with. Like, it would be a massive upset, but, like, they're playing their best football to close out the season. And, like, momentum can mean a lot in the postseason.
Especially in football. And then you got to also look at other teams like Duxbury. That team, they're always battle-tested. They always, make these deep runs. And on the other side, the potential matchup between Danvers and Tewksbury. I think that one is going to be a really intriguing matchup because Danvers, they got some playmakers, and they got a pretty physical defensive line. So, the potential Tewksbury and Danvers matchup is I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then Marblehead, just everything they went through last year, they almost didn't have a season because of the stuff with the teachers and all that. So. They didn't close out the season properly, but I still think they're going to be a tough team to get out in this postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you on Bedford. I mean, I just talking to Shawshank coaches the last 3 years. That's a team that non-league they play that they is a problem.
They're
very well coached and everything else. Interested. I think. If things fall into place with Tewksbury and Canton, Canton's a very good football team. I've heard nothing but great things about them. Kind of the clicking I've done to see their box scores and who they've played. I think potentially, obviously Danvers being a tough one, Marblehead being a tough one, but if those two teams see each other, you might see the best Final Four matchup in any division with those two teams playing.
That's would be a really physical game.
Yeah,
from what I've seen.
Yeah.
So I think that's Division 4. Are there What have we not done here?
We haven't done. Did we do D1 officially or no?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think
7. We haven't done 7.
Yeah. So let's. I guess let's close out with 1 and 7, and then hopefully maybe you guys would be interested in coming back and doing this again after the first round. Will be really fun if you guys have the time to kind of look at who's left and like really get into a little bit more of that. So what do you got? What do you think? What are your thoughts on Division 1?
It's loaded.
Yeah.
It's loaded.
We have some good potential matchups for the second round, but let's everybody get through these first rounds. I think this Leominster-Franklin game is going to be an interesting game. Two teams with two different styles. I think Franklin, they like to run that wing tee. They like to chew up clock. Leominster, spread you around, throw that ball around. They got a really good quarterback. They got a lot of good playmakers. That is going to be probably one of the better games in that one. And then Matthew and Lowell on the other side.
Yeah.
Ooh, they didn't play each other this season.
No.
I thought they did, but they didn't. But it's a Merrimack Valley Conference game. Those ones are always interesting. Methuen, for everybody they lost last year, still had one hell of a season. And then we got the old rivals, Zavarian and Brockton, going at it again in the postseason. But I don't think that'll be much of a game. Zavarian's getting healthy. They're getting healthy, and they're looking to three-peat. So Coach Finero has those guys prepared. But the potential matchup between St. John's Prep and Leominster, that's the one I'm keeping an eye out on for.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head, too, earlier when you were just talking about the Catholic Conference is just different, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this, but you look at the teams that are in it, I mean, St. John's Prep, right? I mean, Springfield Central, I know is not in it, but God, that's a good football team that could play in a conference like that and be successful.
And they've played. They played both. They played St. John's Prep and they played Zavarian this year.
They go 1-1.
They go 1-1 now. Okay. And they almost went 2-0. They had the lead, and then St. John's Prep just made a run. And even last year, Springfield Central always does a good job coming to Eastern Mass and scheduling the game. They played Central Catholic last year. I think they played BC High last year, and they played Zavarian last year as well. So they do a good job scheduling some of the better teams in the Eastern Mass.
Yeah, it's such a loaded.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so loaded that I wouldn't be like if some of these teams lost, I wouldn't be like totally surprised because there's just such good teams that are in it. But like I said, I think if it plays out the right way, what you see is like your top 4, top 5. That's probably what you're gonna see.
And Central Catholic might be the most dangerous team,
right? At a 5.
Yeah, at 5. They're kind of been hitting their stride to close out the season.
Yeah.
The Wachusett Andover matchup should be really good too. Andover, Coach Fielding has those boys. He's got those guys playing really well. And then Wachusett, they've had a really good season. They beat Leominster earlier in the year. They're tough. Being in Central Mass, you might not get all that attention, but
Yeah.
they're a tough team though. So that Wachusett Andover game that should be one of the games for people to watch if you want to see a good back and forth.
Thoughts on Division 7 to close it out? Interesting to me, and I'm not super familiar with this at this level with this division, but Tingsboro undefeated as a 9, but they played one fewer game than everyone else too. I don't know what the story is behind that, but they're 7-0. Everyone else looks like they've played 8 games.
Unless they had a forfeit or something like that.
That is interesting, yeah. I mean, I don't know a ton about D7 either, if I'm being totally honest with you, but when I look at some of the names here, I mean, again, Cohasset always known for their physical, tough defense. They're a tough, South Shore team to play, period. A team that I've heard a little bit about this year is Amesbury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know Amesbury, in the past has not been, what they are now. But from what I hear from that team, it's a fast team. It's a quick team.
They just put up they shut up Manchester Essex 40-0.
Yeah. So that puts it in perspective. Manchester Essex is a 5 seed there. And Amesbury,
that's impressive.
Yeah,
man.
so
40-0 over the 5 seed in the same
on the road.
Yeah,
on the road.
So that I've heard everything I've heard about D7 is Amesbury, and it makes sense now. Kind of hearing some of the stuff here, and obviously I didn't realize they won 40-0 against Manchester Essex. So that puts it even more perspective of maybe this is the team to watch.
Also Northbridge, they're good. I think they lost in the semifinals last year. They got a big senior class. They didn't have they weren't really that good, those guys first couple of years, but last year it was like their breakthrough season. And their coach,
for like ever, right?
Yeah, he's been around for like 50 years or so. I think this is his last year. I think this is his last year coaching. Yeah, I think he reached a milestone this year in wins and stuff like that. And I think Northbridge is going to be the team that gets to Gillette on that side of the bracket.
I guess to close out, guys, because it's been awesome. Who's one player that you're familiar with first round? You're like, that's the guy people should keep an eye on. If you had I know it's hard to pick one. I'm not necessarily saying like who's the best player, but just like who's the guy that you're like, that's who I'm keeping an eye on in the first round.
I mean, it's easy to say anybody from a 1 seed team playing 16, but I think I'll give you 2 guys: Jake Banda, Zach DeChains. I think those are 2 guys. Depending on the score, maybe statistically the numbers might not look the way they look if they're winning in the first half or doing really well. But those are 2 guys that I think their team's success on the offensive side of the ball is somewhat on how well they can play and run the football. So I would say those 2 guys to kind of keep an eye on a little bit.
Mukala, if you want to go with 2 guys, go with.
I should give you one. Chris Vargas is a guy we
gotta
keep watch out. He has for all the success that the St. John's Prep is having this season, he actually has a chip on his shoulder. Last postseason, he got pulled in their Final Four matchup against Needham, and it wasn't having the best game. And then he talking to him over on Saturday, he had a chip on his shoulder in that game because last year against Catholic Memorial, I think he had like 2 turnovers. They got shut out 34-0, and I talked to his mom after. She was saying, he was really focused on this game. So he might, this young man, he probably has a really big chip on his shoulder because of last season. And, for all the great things he did, he still remembers those 2 moments, them not being able to get to Gillette, losing in the semifinals, and the Catholic Memorial game, just like the way he played wasn't the way the expectations he has for himself. So that's the player to watch out for right now. I mean, it's easy to say, but just because of everything that happened last season with him.
Yeah. For me, I guess so. I'll go with 2. One with the Wilmington guy, and they've got a bunch of seniors that all deserve shout outs. But like the guy that I'm watching, Julian Martins, who's junior running back, is a kid that at the end of last football season basically quit the sport as a sophomore. He's a baseball player and enjoy it. Was convinced to come back, and in the games he's played, he's been fantastic. He gives them a different dimension running the ball. They have like Gus Lambert, Aiden Bellavie that like will run people over. And they're shifty, but like Julian Martin's this guy who's like makes someone miss and go and has that kind of speed. He missed basically the entire middle of the season with an arm injury. He had a 2-touchdown game or 3-touchdown game to start the season. Got hurt, missed most of the season, then came back, and he's got 4 touchdowns in his first 2 games back from injury. Wow. After missing most of the season, he comes back and scores. He had a touchdown. They had 3 touchdowns and 100 yards in their last game. And so he's a guy that I think he gives Wilmington a different dimension where running the ball, they can beat you up with Gus and Bellevue, but then he can kind of make someone miss and go for 30, 40, 50 yards. And then Makai Volsey for Bedford, because he's a guy that he was never a football player. He's always a basketball guy, and he kind of really came to the sport late. So he's still not like maybe the most instinctive football guy, but I think it's someone that, like, if it all were to like click for him in the playoffs, could have like a monster opening round game. So, but
I like that.
Yeah, guys, thank you guys for this was really fun for me.
Yeah,
this
was awesome.
It was a
Thank you.
blast.
This was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was great.
Hoping that you guys are willing to come back maybe again.
Yeah,
I'll come back.
Definitely.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. So
That'd be
Come
fun.
back.
yeah,
We do it every week. We'll get on
I
the
would
way
I
down.
would love to, man. It would be so fun to just be like that, have that consistent sort of coverage coming out of here for a couple of weeks for the playoffs, because it's like there's nothing like it, man. There's nothing like the football playoffs, and I love all the other sports, and we have a ton of fun shooting them, but like the energy's never the same for the rest of the year as it is for that.
And now games are like Fridays and Saturdays.
Yep.
I know first round all Friday games.
I saw that. I was
So-
wondering, like, are there any? And it's every one of them. It looks like is
fine.
Friday.
That's
So
right.
that's a lot of meaningful games on one night.
Yeah.
Right. So for a lot of people that do cover the sport, it's like trying to find where to go and who to send where. So it's gonna be good though. It's gonna be good. There's a lot of good matchups. So
Yeah, it's
hopefully
funny
check it
this
out.
year. Me and Elijah, our other videographer, last year, like, we shot every game together because we were only doing Wilmington, and we were talking about we've only shot one game together this year because it was the when Shawsheen had a bye, so we both got to do Stoneham.
Yeah.
But like, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll see you when the football season's over.
Yeah, right.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
absolutely.
This is
Thank
great.
you. This was
Thanks
awesome.
for having us.
Yeah.
Check out. They've got a much bigger following than I do. But if for some reason you don't watch their stuff, check out the Beyond Podcast. Check out LCTV After the Whistle, because they are the people to go to for all of your Mass high school sports.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
It was awesome.